It was a cold and rainy night in the quiet town of Maplewood, the kind of night when people double-check their locks, pull the curtains tight, and wait for morning to come. Thunder rolled in the distance, shaking the old windows of a small house at the end of Willow Lane. Inside that house lived Michael and Sarah Carter, a couple in their late 30s who once had everything, but now felt like they had lost the very reason to keep going. For years they had dreamed of a family. They pictured bedtime stories, birthday parties, little footsteps running down the hall on Christmas morning. But life had played a cruel trick on them. 3 years earlier, their little boy, Ethan, just 6 years old, had been taken from them in a tragic car accident. One reckless driver, one moment on the wrong road, and their world collapsed. Since then, their lives had become an endless loop of silence and grief. Sarah rarely smiled anymore. Michael threw himself into work, anything to numb the pain. Their once warm and cheerful home had become heavy with shadows, filled with pictures of a little boy who would never grow up. That night, Sarah sat curled up on the sofa, staring blankly at the flickering TV. She wasn't watching. She was just existing. Michael was in his office, pretending to read a report, but really just staring at the same page for an hour. The rain beat harder against the roof, and for a moment it seemed like the entire house might sink under the weight of sorrow. And then, it happened. A knock. At first, it was so soft they thought they imagined it, but then it came again, louder this time, sharp, unexpected. Sarah frowned. Who could that be? At this hour, Michael sighed, pushed his chair back, and walked down the hallway. He wasn't expecting anyone. It was almost midnight. Neighbors didn't visit this late. Family lived miles away, and besides, the storm outside was enough to keep anyone home. He hesitated at the door. Another knock. This time urgent, almost desperate. Michael slowly turned the knob and opened the door just a crack. His heart stopped. Standing on the porch, soaked from head to toe, was a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 7. Her hair clung to her pale face, rain dripping from her eyelashes. She wore a thin pink dress, muddy at the hem, and no shoes. Bare feet pressed against the wet wooden boards. Her small arms clutched a stuffed bunny missing one ear. She looked up at him with wide, frightened eyes, and in a trembling voice, she whispered, "Can you help me?" For a long moment, Michael couldn't speak. He just stared, unsure if this was real or some cruel trick of his imagination. But then Sarah appeared behind him, gasping when she saw the child. "Oh my God," Sarah whispered, rushing forward. "Sweetheart, what happened? Where are your parents?" The little girl shook her head, water splashing from her tangled hair. "I don't know. I don't know where they are." Michael quickly pulled her inside, shutting the door against the storm. The girl shivered, teeth chattering, her tiny body trembling from cold. Sarah grabbed a blanket from the couch and wrapped it around her shoulders, gently rubbing her arms. "What's your name, honey?" Sarah asked softly. The girl hesitated. Then, in the faintest voice, she said, "Lily." Sarah's heart twisted. The name itself felt like a fragile flower in the middle of their broken home. Michael crouched down to her level. "Lily, where did you come from? Did you get lost? Do you live nearby?" But Lily only shook her head again. "I was running. I knocked on the wrong door. The wrong door." Those words would echo in their minds for years to come. Sarah exchanged a worried glance with Michael. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. They guided Lily to the sofa, gave her a cup of warm milk, and tried to coax more information. But she spoke little, just fragments. She said she had been outside for a long time, that she was trying to get away, that the place she had left wasn't safe. When Michael gently asked about her parents again, Lily's eyes filled with tears. "They don't want me," she whispered. "They never did." Sarah felt her chest tighten. It was like looking into a wound she knew too well, the wound of a child unloved, unwanted. She wrapped her arms around the girl, and for the first time in years, Sarah felt the protective instinct of motherhood rush back. Michael, practical as always, reached for his phone. "We need to call the police. Or child services. She could be missing. Her family might be looking for her right now." But as he dialed, Lily's small hand shot out, grabbing his wrist with surprising strength. Her eyes pleaded, "Please, don't send me back. Please." Michael froze. He looked at Sarah, torn between doing what was right by the law and what felt right in his heart. Sarah whispered, "Let's just wait a little. Let her rest. We can figure it out in the morning." Reluctantly, Michael put the phone down. Lily, exhausted, curled up under the blanket and soon fell asleep, clutching her stuffed bunny tight. The couple sat in silence, watching her breathe, and for the first time in years, the house didn't feel like a tomb. It felt alive. That night, Sarah dreamed for the first time in a long time. She dreamed of laughter, of little footsteps on wooden floors, of sunlight breaking through curtains. She dreamed of hope, but hope never comes without a cost. The next morning, Lily awoke with a start, screaming from a nightmare. Sarah rushed to her side, holding her until the fear passed. Michael made pancakes, though he hadn't cooked in months, and placed them in front of the girl. She ate slowly at first, then hungrily, as though she hadn't had a real meal in days. As the hours passed, little details began to emerge. A bruise on her arm, a scar near her collarbone, the way she flinched at sudden movements. Something terrible had happened to this child. Sarah wanted to keep her safe forever. Michael knew they couldn't. By noon, the reality they had been avoiding came crashing back. They couldn't just keep her. The law wouldn't allow it. And yet, neither of them could bear the thought of sending her away. When Michael stepped outside to clear his head, he noticed a car parked down the street. A dark sedan, windows tinted. He thought little of it at first, until he realized it had been there the night before as well. And when he looked again, he saw someone sitting inside, watching the house. A chill ran down his spine. He hurried back inside, locking the door. Sarah looked up, startled by his expression. "What is it?" Michael lowered his voice. "We're being watched." Lily's face went pale. She pulled the blanket tighter around herself. "They found me," she whispered. Sarah's heart raced. "Who, Lily? Who found you?" The little girl's voice trembled. "The people I was running from." And just like that, the quiet house on Willow Lane became the center of a storm far darker than the one outside. Michael pulled the curtains shut, checked every lock twice, and told Sarah to keep Lily close. He didn't know who was in that car or what they wanted with this little girl, but he knew one thing for certain. This was no ordinary child who had knocked on their door, and from that moment on, the lives of Michael and Sarah Carter would never, ever be the same. Michael's heart pounded in his chest. The storm outside had passed, but a new kind of darkness pressed in. He stood at the window, careful not to be seen, and peered through a slit in the curtain. The sedan was still there, motionless, watching. Sarah sat on the couch, cradling Lily close. The little girl's wide eyes darted toward the door, then to the windows, then back to Sarah's face, as though trying to memorize the safe features of the only person she trusted. Michael whispered, "We can't just sit here. If someone's after her, we need to know why." Sarah stroked Lily's hair gently. "She's terrified, Michael. Look at her. We can't just push her with questions." But the tension in the air was too heavy to ignore. Michael knelt down in front of Lily, lowering his voice. "Sweetheart, I need you to be brave. Can you tell me who those people are? Why they're watching the house?" For a long time, Lily said nothing. Her small hands clutched the stuffed bunny tighter, as though it were the only anchor holding her to the earth. Finally, she whispered, "They're bad people. They hurt me. They said if I ever tried to run, they'd make me disappear." Sarah's blood ran cold. "Are they your parents?" Michael asked cautiously. Lily shook her head violently, tears spilling down her cheeks. "No, they're not my real parents. They just took me." Sarah gasped. "Oh my God." Michael felt the ground shift beneath him. This wasn't just a lost child. This was something far darker, something criminal. He stood abruptly and reached for his phone. "That's it. I'm calling the police. This is bigger than us." But again, Lily's hand shot out, grabbing his arm with desperate strength. "Please, if you call them, those people will find out. They'll take me back before the police can help. Please don't let them take me back." Sarah pulled the girl close again, whispering, "You're safe here. I promise. Nobody's going to hurt you." Michael's hand trembled over the phone. He was torn between logic and instinct, law and love. For years, he had lived in the shadows of grief, unable to protect his own child. And now, here was another chance. A fragile life begging for his protection. He set the phone down slowly. "All right? But we need a plan. That night, none of them slept. Michael stayed awake at the window, watching the car. Sarah lay beside Lily on the couch, holding her hand as the child drifted in and out of restless dreams. By dawn, the car was gone, but the damage was done. They knew danger was circling. The days that followed were a strange mixture of fear and fragile joy. Sarah and Lily bonded quickly, as though their souls had been waiting to find one another. They baked cookies together, painted pictures, filled the house with small echoes of the childhood Sarah thought she'd lost forever. Michael, though still cautious, found himself softening too. One evening, he came home from work to hear laughter in the kitchen. Real laughter, the kind he hadn't heard in 3 long years. And for a moment, he stood in the doorway, letting the sound heal parts of him he thought were gone forever. But the shadows never disappeared. The car returned every few nights, always parked in the distance, always watching. And Lily grew more anxious, sometimes waking in the middle of the night, whispering, "They're coming. I know they're coming." Finally, Michael decided he couldn't stay passive any longer. He reached out to an old friend, Detective Harris, a man he trusted. Without giving details, he hinted that a child might be in danger and asked for advice. Harris's voice on the other end was firm. "If what you're telling me is true, you can't keep her hidden. But be careful who you talk to. Sometimes the wrong people get the right information." The words haunted Michael. Who could be trusted? Who couldn't? One evening, as Sarah tucked Lily into bed, the girl whispered something that froze her heart. "I remember where they live." Sarah knelt beside her. "Where, sweetheart?" "In a house with broken windows. Outside the city. They kept other kids there too." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "Other kids." Lily nodded. "I wasn't the only one." Sarah kissed her forehead and whispered, "You're safe now. I promise." But inside, rage burned. No child should ever have to carry such memories. The following weekend, everything came to a head. It was late evening. Michael was locking up the house when headlights swept across the living room. He froze. A van had pulled up right in front of their yard. Before he could react, 2 men stepped out, broad-shouldered, faces shadowed, movements purposeful. Sarah screamed, "Michael!" He rushed to the door, bolting it just as fists began pounding against the wood. "Give us the girl," a deep voice shouted. "She's not yours." Lily shrieked in terror, clinging to Sarah's leg. Michael grabbed a baseball bat from the closet. His heart thundered. "Call the police," he yelled to Sarah. But before she could, the front window shattered. One of the men climbed halfway inside. Michael swung the bat with every ounce of strength he had, striking the intruder's arm. The man howled in pain and retreated. Tires screeched. The van roared back to life, speeding away into the night. Moments later, red and blue lights flooded the street. The neighbors, awakened by the commotion, had already called 911. Detective Harris himself arrived, demanding answers. Michael, breathing heavily, finally told him everything. About Lily, about the car, about the men. Harris's face darkened. "You should have come to me sooner, but you did the right thing tonight. We'll protect her now." Sarah clutched Lily close, tears streaming down her face. "Please, don't let them take her away. She belongs here, with us." Harris softened, but his voice was steady. "First, we need to keep her safe. Then we'll figure out the rest." The investigation that followed uncovered a nightmare beyond anything they imagined. The men were part of a trafficking ring operating in the shadows of the city. Children like Lily had been taken, hidden, used, and discarded. But Lily, she had escaped. By chance, by miracle, by knocking on the wrong door that had somehow become the right one. Over the next months, the Carters worked closely with authorities. Lily testified in closed court, her small voice bringing down powerful men who thought they were untouchable. The ring was dismantled. Other children were rescued. Through it all, Michael and Sarah never left her side. They became her anchor, her shield, her family. And when the time came, the judge granted them full custody. On that day, Lily walked into the courthouse with trembling hands and walked out holding Michael's and Sarah's hands tightly in her own. The papers were signed. The past was over. The future was hers. Years passed. The house on Willow Lane bloomed again with life. Laughter filled the halls. Pictures of Lily joined those of Ethan on the walls, not replacing him, but standing proudly beside him. 2 children, one lost, one found, both forever loved. Sarah, once broken, learned to smile again. Michael, once hardened, found joy in fatherhood. And Lily, once terrified and abandoned, grew into a strong, radiant young woman who never forgot the night everything changed. Because it all began with a knock at midnight, a child standing alone in the rain, and two broken souls who opened their door and their hearts, and together they built a family. But this story doesn't end with a happy family portrait, because sometimes the most beautiful transformations come with their own unexpected challenges. 5 years had passed since that stormy night. Lily, now 12, had grown into a spirited girl with Sarah's gentle eyes and Michael's stubborn determination. The scars of her past had faded, but never fully disappeared. Some nights, she still woke reaching for that one-eared bunny, now carefully preserved on her bookshelf. The Carter house had become something miraculous, a beacon of healing not just for them, but for their entire community. Word had spread quietly about what happened that night. Other families who had lost children began reaching out, drawn by something they couldn't quite name. Sarah had started a support group that met in their living room every Tuesday evening, the same room where Lily had first curled up under that blanket. But success stories, even beautiful ones, cast shadows of their own. One autumn evening, as golden leaves danced outside the kitchen window, Lily sat at the table struggling with her math homework. Michael was helping her when she suddenly looked up with those searching eyes that still sometimes held depths too old for her age. "Dad," she said quietly. The word still made Michael's heart skip, even after all these years. Hearing her call him that felt like a gift. What if they hadn't given up? What if those people had kept looking for me? Sarah, washing dishes at the sink, froze. This was the question they'd all been avoiding, the shadow that lurked beneath their happiness. Michael set down his pen carefully. "What makes you ask that, sweetheart?" Lily fidgeted with her pencil eraser. "There's a new girl at school, Emma. She just moved here with her foster family. She told me something today that scared me." The room grew quiet except for the gentle tick of the kitchen clock, the same clock that had counted down the minutes on that fateful night. "She said," Lily continued, her voice barely above a whisper, "that sometimes the bad people don't just disappear, that they have friends, that they remember." Sarah turned around, drying her hands on a towel, her face pale. "Lily, honey, those men are in prison. They can't hurt you anymore." But Michael noticed what Sarah missed. Lily wasn't just afraid. She was trying to tell them something. "There's more, isn't there?" he asked gently. Lily nodded, tears beginning to form. "Emma's foster mom. She used to work with kids like us, kids who got away from bad people. She told Emma that sometimes there are others who remember the children who escaped." The pencil slipped from Michael's hand, clattering onto the homework page filled with half-solved equations that suddenly seemed impossibly insignificant. That night, after Lily had gone to bed, Michael called Detective Harris. The conversation that followed would haunt him for weeks. "I've been wondering when you'd call," Harris said, his voice heavy with an exhaustion that spoke of too many cases, too many sleepless nights. "We've been monitoring some high activities, communications between imprisoned members of the ring and outside contacts. Nothing concrete, nothing we can act on, but Michael, you need to be careful." "What kind of activities?" Michael's knuckles were white as he gripped the phone. "Let's just say that Lily's testimony didn't just put those men away. It destroyed a network worth millions. People like that, they have long memories and longer reach." Sarah appeared in the doorway, having heard enough of the conversation to understand. The look they shared was the same one they'd exchanged that first night, two people realizing their world was about to change again. "What do we do?" Sarah whispered. Harris's voice crackled through the phone. "You do what you've always done. You love that girl, you keep her safe, and you trust that good people outnumber the bad ones." But trust, they were about to learn, was a luxury they could no longer afford. The first sign came 3 weeks later. Lily's school called. She hadn't shown up for her afternoon classes. The secretary's voice was calm but concerned. She left during lunch break and never returned. Her teacher thought she might be sick, but when she checked the nurse's office, Michael's world tilted. He ran red lights getting to the school, his mind racing through every nightmare scenario. Sarah met him in the principal's office, her face streaked with tears. They found Lily 2 hours later, hiding in the old oak tree in the park where they'd had countless family picnics. She was clutching her phone, staring at a text message with a number she didn't recognize. The message was simple, chilling. "We remember you, little rabbit." Sarah's scream echoed across the empty park. That night, as police cars sat in their driveway and officers walked the perimeter of their home, the Carter family faced their darkest moment since that stormy night 5 years ago. But this time, something was different. This time, they weren't facing it alone. By morning, their yard was filled with cars, but not the kind they feared. Detective Harris had called in favors from every contact he'd made in 20 years of police work. Sarah's support group had mobilized, creating a network of watchful eyes throughout the neighborhood. Even Emma's foster mother, a woman named Grace with silver hair and steel-gray determination, had arrived with a duffel bag and a promise. That child is not facing this alone. But the most surprising arrival came just as the sun was setting. A knock at the door, gentle but confident. When Michael opened it, he found a woman in her 30s with kind eyes and a familiar scar near her collarbone. "My name is Rebecca," she said simply. "Lily saved my life 5 years ago, even though she never knew it. Her testimony helped rescue me and 6 other girls. I heard she might need help now." Behind Rebecca stood others, young adults who had survived the same nightmare, who had been found because Lily had been brave enough to speak. They had come home to protect the girl who had helped set them free. That night, as this unlikely army of survivors, police officers, social workers, and neighbors kept vigil around the Carter home, something beautiful happened. The house that had once been heavy with grief, that had welcomed one lost child on a stormy night, had become a fortress of hope defended by an entire community. Lily, sitting between Michael and Sarah on the couch, looked around at all the faces. Some familiar, some new, all determined to keep her safe, and whispered, "They wanted to make me disappear. But look how many people remember me instead." Sarah pulled her close, tears streaming down her face, not of fear this time, but of overwhelming gratitude. "Sweetheart, you didn't just knock on the wrong door that night. You knocked on exactly the right one. And look what grew from it." Outside, the autumn wind rattled the windows. But inside, surrounded by love and protection, the little girl who had once stood alone in the rain sat safe in the arms of not just a family, but a community that would never let her disappear. Because some stories that begin with fear transform into legends of courage, and some wrong doors lead to exactly where you're supposed to be. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs a reminder of the power of love and hope. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel, so you never miss the next story that might change everything for you, too.